Is it up? Fucking adverts. Yes, I swore. Yeah, we are. Alright. Welcome to what is now known as AD Talks, because Fuse Talks is something else, and I feel like putting the title as AD makes it more relevant to Argent Dawn rather than the person behind the actual thing. It is all about me. I'm a pretty big deal. Exactly. Well, today we have Ernya and Bromhead. Bromhead is here again. Can't let him go, you know. What have you both been up to before I move on to a small update? Yep. Alright. What about you, Mr. Brom? How's your thing with the footman going? That was from last time? Yeah. Well, I don't think I did actually. But yeah, it is Guild Coalitions and Alliances. Oh, can they? I cannot even see the chat at the moment, so let me refresh that. Sounds fucked. Uh, alright, give me a sec, sorry guys. Don't know why it is. Ah, okay, I might know what it is. Let me just go settings, output. Alright, let's see if this works. Talk guys. I want to see if the desktop is captured. Look, if we want to get this fixed and going, you are my puppet for now.
Hashtag stop Fuse Talks. That's
There
from
we
now
go,
on.
there we go. Audio should be up. Sorry guys. Just give us a nudge if it isn't functioning, if it isn't loud enough or whatever, but
Shall we take the chance to introduce the stream properly this time?
we'll reintroduce it for the sake of, because everyone was muted. Welcome to what is now known as AD Talks, changed from Fuse Talks just to be more relevant to the realm itself. Fuse Talks probably be a different side project. Today we're talking guild coalitions and alliances. We have Bromhead and Ernya. Ernya is a potential co-host for AD Talks. I'll let them reintroduce themselves again. Ernya, go for it.
Hi, so I'm Anya. Quite a few well, I've been on this a few times now, so hopefully a few people remember me. Anya is also the name of my character. It's the main, well, only one I properly roleplay right now. I have like a character I use for one-shots and stuff. But I'm in the same guild as Fuse, which is the Myrmidon. And in terms of recent roleplay, we've been going through this sort of very dark and difficult guild campaign where it's like we're trying to reform our guild and sort of have a restructuring, if that makes sense. So we're sort of going for a campaign that's designed to bond all the characters in it together through tough circumstances so they come out stronger and we can sort of move on from there. But yeah, that's basically what I've been up to recently.
Go on, Bromhead. You again with your footman.
Yes, the Rangers have been doing stuff that is quite pertinent to today's discussion. We've been on a joint training deployment with the Footman Guild, and we're currently on a joint combat deployment with the Footman Guild.
Alright, well, we'll drop right into the conversation, but at the end I do have a small update suggested by Ernya that will probably be brought into the next couple of streams. We'll test it out, do something a little different. Well, first question is, why do guild coalitions, alliances, what do you make of them, like, you know?
Depends on the reason they happen.
Yeah, I think that's a very good place to start.
Why would you make one then? Like, what was your reason specifically to join up with the Footmen, for example?
We've bonded ourselves to Footmen because we're both Alliance military. So one of the sort of key things for me when military guilds ask other military guilds to be allies, in inverted commas, it's a bit like, well, we kind of already are because we are in the same army. That's not really what we've got going on with Footmen. The agreement we've got with Footmen is more, let's deploy our units together more often because it's more realistic that units would be deployed together. So it's more about trying to get a heightened experience of what military life is like and not feeling like you're the only unit on the front line, as it is to say, hey, when we get drama, you've got our backs, right? Because I don't do that.
So it's to me, so the essence of that argument is to make it feel more immersive. Which,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good argument. I feel, well, sorry, did you have more to say? Was there more points there?
No.
I would say the other big reason that sticks out to me is you might want to say sort of convenience is a way to put it, because if you have two guilds with similar concepts that operate in similar areas, it's really inconvenient if you guys don't like each other. You can see it a lot in Stormwind, where a lot of the guilds who don't get on, there's not as many now, I feel, as there used to be. There definitely used to be this whole thing where everybody just fucking hated each other. And
Yeah, there was like fucking 12 of them.
Yeah, and they would just all argue the whole time. So I think the community's learned that when you want to use the same space, it kind of helps if you all get on and like each other, and that encourages a lot of inter-guild stuff nowadays. I mean, the biggest thing is like the campaigns. Obviously, there's campaigns all over AD all the time, and those are sort of... they're probably best to call them coalitions. They're temporary ones, albeit.
Campaigns are always a good way to also form long-lasting alliances between other guilds and players as well. You get to know these players. One example of my coalitions and stuff I've had in the past is, as Bromhead knows, I used to run the Wonderspark Guild, and I used to do this thing called the Gearworks Union or something like that, where it'd be like a coalition of goblins from different like business backgrounds kind of coming together and, you know, finding ways to progress forwards, work with one another to gain profit, basically. Which is a difference from the military stuff, but it's still something that makes more fun interactive roleplay rather than it just be like you being the sole merchant and pretty much just that, really.
I suppose that is different to the military stuff, but it's also not. I think
It's
for
all
me,
for the
like,
sake of immersion.
yeah, for me, guild coalitions that are worth doing are the ones like you just described with the Gearworks. And the thing that we've got going with Footmen, and I know 3 years ago Footmen did First Royal Battalion, which had about 4 or 5 military guilds in it, and it was all about how do we pool the resources that we've got to make the world more immersive. Those are the good kind of coalitions and alliances where there's actually a purpose. The ones that I dislike, which, as Ernya said, we don't see so much of anymore, but I think 2 years ago they were everywhere. You couldn't walk down the street without tripping over a coalition that was essentially, if we generate drama, this guild's going to back us up. And then we'll get all of our members together. Yeah, we'll get all of our members in there, and we'll all just stand in front of you and go, look how scary we are, there's 50 of us, because there's 4 guilds here, and it's like, but why? half the time they didn't even make sense. It was like a military guild, a criminal guild, a guard guild, and a merchant guild, and it's like, why are these four entirely different entities working in one for any reason at all, let alone drama?
And yeah, you can have coalitions without guilds having to necessarily in character work together. Because I know there's a couple of guard guilds who do work with criminal guilds, and that's sort of an out of character understanding. It's like, well, if we catch you guys, there needs to be some form. Well, you guys can agree to some form of consequences, and they realise that the roleplay works better, even though they're on different sides, when they work together out of character. And I think that's a massive running theme you can see on any really successful concept of roleplay on Argent Dawn.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think the opposing sides of the coin coalition are good ones as well. When it's about, we're not friends in character, but out of character, because you're the other side of our dynamic, we'll work with you to make it more immersive.
Yeah, that's the best way to say it. Oh, excuse me.
I wouldn't say it happened. Yeah, I mean you've already said doesn't really happen anymore, but I guess you can call those bad cliques. I mean, they are cliques, they're not coalitions in my eyes, or alliances, because coalitions and alliances between guilds is something I view as doing something productive rather than just being there for the sake of backing each other up for whatever drama reason.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't call that anything productive at all.
It's a good way of differentiating the two different types, but I mean, they usually, or used to when they were relevant, pitched themselves as an alliance, and you would often get invited if you were a GM or a high-ranking officer in a guild. You'd often get approached by these kinds of people that would be like, "Oh, we want to have a meeting to make an alliance," and like, it's one of the reasons that I always played core military alliance guilds, because I could just say, I get my orders from Alliance High Command. Why would I join a fucking random association of merchants and criminals in Duskwood?
Yeah, definitely.
Why would I even attend? I know where my orders come from. It ain't from you.
It does need. There should be no. There's obviously there is a difference there when you start to grab military roleplay. Just as you say, the nature of it is more, maybe less prone to necessarily coalitions in general, because you're sort of, as you say, limited to other military guilds or anything else you can kind of work in with it. Because as you say, you get your definitive orders from a source. Whereas if you're on sort of just an example like a trading guild, yeah, you can ally with a trading guild, you can ally with a mercenary guild to protect caravans, you can ally with, you can even out of character ally with a criminal guild to come and raid those caravans, get the mercenary someone to fight. So I suppose it would be more common in certain areas of roleplay than others.
Yeah, it should be. But I mean, it does happen surprisingly a lot in the military community, usually intra-military. It's other military guilds asking military guilds to be allies, and it's like, to me, that is just a ridiculous concept. If you're both, particularly if you're both like alliance military guilds, not a mercenary company or a militia or something like that. You're both military guilds. It's like, why are you asking if we can be allies? We are. That's the state of our existence. We already are.
Oh, let's for a second just toss out the word alliance. How would you, in an appropriate way, formulate a connection with another, guild, group, whatever, with the mindset that you want to do creative, roleplay, productive, provide more immersion for both sides, basically, without the whole drama cliquey stuff we've mentioned already? How would you suggest someone go about that, or how would you specifically go about that?
I think for me it depends on what your guilds are and what the purpose of the coalition is for.
Let's put two different examples. Obviously we spoke about two different examples already. There's the merchant aspect of it and military. Sometimes even both can come together as it is. But yeah, well, what would you say in that case then? Because militaries are kind of, I mean, if you're horde aligned or alliance aligned, you're already technically alliances as it is, which you've already mentioned. So how would they go about, in an appropriate sense, how would they go about, working together? Not in the sense of I want to form an alliance with you. It's I'm going to help you sort of thing.
I think initially it should really be out of character. So it should be like with Footman, myself and Burke and Manford, spoke at length about what we were looking to do before we even agreed to anything. The ones that are weird are where people approach you in character that you've never spoken to before, and they just ask for an alliance in character, and it's like, well, I don't know what you want out of this. It just sounds weird. So I think no matter what you're doing, it needs to be hashed out of character first, and then either have an in-character meeting if you need one to formalize it, or to hash out in-character details as well. Because obviously, like Ernie said, when criminal and law enforcement guilds work together, they're not going to have an IC meeting to formalize it, because it's more of an agreement to immerse each other. But some guilds, say, even two criminal guilds that have sort of, drawn the borders around, this is our bit, that's your bit, we won't mess with each other's stuff. If they've agreed that out of character to make the criminal underworld feel bigger so that they can work with each other, they might still then need to have an in-character sit-down to say, you stay out of this city because that's ours, and we'll stay out of that one because that's yours. You know what I mean? So there might be two aspects to it, but I think out of character has to be first.
I could see that. It's to formulate an understanding between both, or whatever, how many participants there are. Do you ever feel there is an IC angle that... Sorry, Anya, I'll let you talk in a moment. Do you ever feel that there is an IC angle that you can approach and make it work? So I guess if you're coming from an IC perspective, you'd have to allow room for it to grow rather than directly dive into it. But is there any way you can see it working from an IC angle?
I think, yeah, but it again comes down to what it is you're actually wanting out of the alliance. If your alliance is, a merchant or criminal agreement to share the profits and the territory, the turf that you control between the 2 or 3 or however many guilds, with the express purpose of, this is your bit, that's our bit, and we'll cross stuff over. So if we get something and we think it's going to sell more in your bit, we'll sell it to you. You know what I mean? That could start as an almost entirely in-character enterprise, where it's just one criminal guild saying... I mean, I did it a little bit with Luca back in, 2013. It was, I'll sell my stuff here, but I'll only sell this stuff, and, I'll cut you a deal so that you can knock it on for a bit more profit than everybody else. It's one of those things where if there's an actual reason for the alliance existing, it can grow from very small in-character origins.
Oh, well, what did you want to say about it, Ernya?
Oh, I can't remember. I was just going to add something just on the end there. It's cool.
Well, what would be your preferred approach on it then, Ernya?
I don't know. I think you guys are right. The best way to do it is speak out of character first, I suppose, because I guess you might say it's probably important to have a good idea of who you're allying with, or who you're sort of moving into a coalition with, because there's obviously sort of reputation as character is a thing on Argent Dawn. Whether or not it's a good or a bad thing, people will recognize your character for a long time and sort of remember all kinds of shit about it that doesn't matter. But it's important to know the people you're moving to work with out of character. Make sure they have the same sort of views on what roleplay should be. So, like, it's fun for everybody, it's inclusive, it's not, the cool kids club and you can't hang out with us. You want to make sure you're not getting into stuff like that, because that sort of thing can affect your own reputation on the server.
Just on that note, well, I think sometimes clashing ideas can make better ideas, if that makes sense. If they're not arguing about who's the better guild and stuff, actually arguing about productivity and roleplay and whatever concept they're going for.
Yeah, but there's a slight difference between that and just saying,
Of course. What would you say are some of the cons for, these coalitions? Either one of you, if you have something to say on that matter.
For a lot of people, I guess it's kind of... There's a bit of magic lost. The fact it's not their baby anymore, if that makes sense. You probably do have to compromise. At some point you may have to compromise something about your guild that you don't want to compromise to continue sort of working together. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but it's when you work with other people, that's just something that can happen.
It's definitely a thing that can happen, and it's actually a really good point. But yeah, if you've got particularly with guilds that are focused around combat, I think there's a way that would come up, because guilds that do combat all have a way of doing it, whether it's through roles or DM, sort of D&D character sheets or freeform. Everyone's got their own way of doing it, their own values to apply to it, and when you get two guilds working together, as we're experiencing at the minute, you've got to compromise because they work on an entirely different system to you.
Yeah, sacrifice, and actually, I do have an example on that, and it will be briefly about drama that's happened before, but I guess people can learn from it. With the Gearworks union, one of the cons I'd say was miscommunication and the lack of, getting a better understanding between one another, and instead diving into these sticky situations that kind of tore the whole idea behind the Gearworks union apart. It was between the Gearfist and the Cutthroat cartel, and there was some OOC stuff which I won't go into, but it did cause that whole thing to explode basically. And these are things that can happen if you don't sit down and try to communicate with one another in an appropriate manner.
Yeah, I think that's the other big con, is even if you formed the coalition for the best of intentions and it wasn't a simple you back us up when there's drama thing, the tendency when you've got any kind of agreement with another guild, when shit happens, which it inevitably does on Argent Dawn, the temptation is there to go, look, dude, I know we didn't make the group for this kind of thing, but these guys outnumber us, we're not exactly in a favourable position. Could you guys maybe come and just back us up? And it's like, in some very limited cases, that probably makes sense from an IC and OOC point of view, but
Yeah, but
outside of that, I think like it's a slippery slope the minute you have to turn to somebody and say, can you come back us up so that we look bigger, because we're getting our ass kicked here.
Yeah, the moment you're using the coalition as a method of getting people to back off with big numbers, that's the moment you're kind of just stripping away the whole meaning behind it, really.
Yeah, and the problem is you then owe the other guild the same favour, so if they ever get in shit, you can't turn around and go, well, we're not backing you in that drama because we don't think it's a good idea. They're just going to go, well, we backed you. Then it becomes, just messy.
Yeah, I feel like an appropriate way of dealing with that is putting together some guidelines for it as well. As in, as soon as you form that, union, whatever, you put those guidelines down on the table, saying this and that, come to an agreement with it. Obviously, you can't make all the decisions, you have to make it collectively. So it doesn't come to a point where instead of actually doing roleplay, you're just dealing with drama all the time. You can always refer back to the rules and use it as a guideline really to appropriately operate, really.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, getting like a charter about what the coalition's for.
Yeah, that's something every guild should have, but not many of them do. Well, not all of them do, I should probably say.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be out of character one. You can just literally, when you're formulating this, I don't know, signing papers as goblins would do, you have a set of rules and areas and whatever, like, okay, this turf is mine, you're not allowed on it, or I sell this, you can't sell that, sort of thing. That's an in-character example, but out of character, same thing really. We try to, I don't know, your drama's yours, our drama's ours. Unless it is against one another, we are not there to be your drama shield, whatever you want to call it. We are here to do roleplay,
Yeah, I think that's one of the healthiest ways to think about it. That is just a healthy approach to roleplay generally.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I think it's one of those things that people either have it or they don't, and the community tends to split itself quite well between people who I think there's very clearly people who are sort of in it to posture and EP and be like, oh, hey, look, my guild's bigger than your guild, and look at all my members. But I think those people sort of just tend to only play with each other most of the time because those are the only people it really matters for. And then the people who just want to have the fun of roleplay generally tend to congregate together as well.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing, because what I consider the height of sort of the coalition problem is probably best described as a point in time where that didn't happen, where the EP guilds were trying to enforce themselves onto guilds that didn't care about it, and that tends to be where a lot of the drama flared up.
Yeah. Alright, let's go to pros on it. And again, pros is the productivity of roleplay that can come with it, the stories that you can have with each other, and the growth in general, really, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, and it helps bring a lot of different character concepts together, like maybe not so much coalition, but the campaign we recently did in Pandaria with the Myrmidon and Journeyman and the Nightblade Sentinels and like the Kultiran Brigade or the Kultiran Marines, whichever they are. They were all there. It was all great, and it was one of the best things about it was getting so many characters of different like backgrounds and types together to actually hang out with each other. I think that's one of the most fun things about it.
I feel like that's a clear example and something that's functioned from an IC perspective, really, specifically with the Nightblades. That grew naturally between the Myrmidon and the Nightblades.
Yeah, and it works because there are some sentinels, and we're a boat that takes elves. Sentinels need to get places. It all comes nicely together, wraps up, and then we end up getting on so well in character and out of character that we sort of. I'd say there's probably an alliance. There's no actual word like phrasing agreement on it, but we're very connected guilds, I suppose you might say.
I think for me, some of the best outside of event RP, I guess maybe you'd call it casual RP or camp RP.
Yeah.
The best of that comes when two different guilds are put in the same place.
Oh, that.
So we've been having an absolute blast camping with Footman, and we've only been doing it like 2-3 days yet. But like, there's so much roleplay around just simple things like the fact that Footman camp in tents and the Rangers just sleep under blankets, and it's like. That's not something that the Rangers RP within themselves, because we all sleep under blankets. Nobody sleeps in a tent, and with Footman, everybody sleeps in a tent, nobody sleeps under a blanket. But you put the two groups together and it's like, that becomes a thing. It's like, why are you sleeping under blankets? It's like, well, why do you set up a tent? And it's just mind-boggling how much roleplay we've had around small differences like that between the two groups.
Yeah.
Someone actually brought up. What do you think of hierarchy out of guilds, like between military and guard guilds? If there is a campaign fight, perhaps, do you think that would be possible? I mean,
I think it kind of works if there's an out of character agreement to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there have been a couple of examples recently, but I don't think it's best to bring them up directly. But yeah, like, it's the same as anything. If you can do anything in roleplay as long as you get people to agree to it out of character.
That's the thing, like, consent in roleplay is just, you can't do it without it, even though some people will try. If the other side doesn't consent to whatever's happening, then it ain't happening. I think campaigns and, big joint military operations tend to be where that kind of thing comes to a head more often than not. Because a lot of people don't want to be commanded by other military guilds, and it comes down to... Yeah, exactly, not my president. It comes down to, like, does the guild that's in command respect what it is that the guild they're commanding does, or are they just using them as, extra NPCs and stuff like that?
Here's where I feel hierarchy doesn't matter. I mean, if it's an out of whatever fight in the middle of nowhere, probably, but no matter what campaign you're in, you're joining someone else's campaign. Immediately, they have the hierarchy there. They're at the top because they're leading the fight, out of character and in character. Obviously, if they're a good campaign manager, everyone has a say in it either way. But at the end of the day, it's their campaign, right? And they're at the top. It's like with Terralas, for example, and the Dark Shore campaign. He was just an SI7 agent, right? He wasn't really high-ranking member, but people followed him because he's the one who's leading the operation. No matter if you're a commander or a captain, whatever, at the end of the day, he gave the word out.
Yeah.
Yeah, there has to be an element of respect for whose campaign it is OOC, but I think the question was more about whose campaign is it IC. And actually, I'd like to address that second question if I can.
Go for it.
It's slightly not guild coalitions and alliances, but more in guild relations. But again, for me, the military scene provides a very clear example of this kind of thing. The question for anybody who's not able to see the chat is basically, if you roleplay someone with a higher rank than someone else that's not in your guild, that it would be cool to follow the orders of the man with the higher rank. The problem being that he can be an arsehole about it, basically. What I've always tried to instill with the Rangers, and what I feel many of the better military guilds also instill, is you respect the rank IC, and if the order is reasonable, then you do what that person is saying. But at the end of the day, if the order's not reasonable or it goes against what you think your superiors would want you to do, then don't do it. It comes down to a really fine balance, and the better guilds will make it work. So we defer a lot of respect to the GM of Footman, who is a captain IC. Our highest rank is staff sergeant. It's a lot lower than captain. It's not even an officer rank. So we defer a lot of respect to him. We defer a lot of respect to his lieutenants and stuff like that. And if they gave orders and the orders made sense, we'd follow them, because A, we would probably do that anyway. So what's the point in arguing because they're not in our guild? And B, they are a higher rank than us in the army. But if they gave a shit order that was essentially go and commit suicide, I would expect and have seen the Rangers go, yeah, we're not doing that because that's not how we've been trained to fight. And it just comes down to that. It's a respect thing. I think that's the best way to do it, is respect the rank, and if it's reasonable, do it. If it's not reasonable, don't do it, and hopefully your GM will back you if you didn't do it.
Yeah, I can't imagine anyone's GM saying, oh, you didn't follow that other GM's orders. Now you're in trouble.
I think it comes down to the same argument as before, is consent, really.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to follow it, but it'd be good to acknowledge that character, for example, is a higher ranking member than you are, or whatever. It's good to always acknowledge that, but you don't have to follow it at the end of the day. You're part of a different guild, they're part of that guild. I mean, it's pretty much there as it is.
It's a courtesy thing more than anything else.
Yeah.
If you're not guilded and you just walk around with a military rank, or maybe you're retired or whatever, then probably just do what you want to do. Is whatever you want. It's your roleplay. It's the best.
I still try and respect characters that do that, because I have had a few where they're not guilded and they've made a character that's like a commander or something, and they come in and, you know, we've had them previously turn up at Westbrook and be like, I'm here to do an inspection of the garrison, and it's like, right, fine, yeah, crack on, because you're a commander and it doesn't disturb what we're doing. But if somebody who's an ungilded commander turns up and wants to bollock my men because they've not cleaned their kit, it's like, did you actually check that they've not cleaned their kit, or did you just come in here on an EPing trip?
Yeah, literally. And be like, yeah.
I think we've had that happen to us before as the Myrmidon as well.
Have we? Kind of, maybe.
Yeah, sort of, yeah. But, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we have that. That's not...
Yeah, we won't dwell in much into it, but it could have been resolved a lot better as well. I'll quickly, even though it's not guild coalitions and stuff, but it's always good to give that chance to ungilded players, because I mean, not everyone wants to be in a guild, right? Or not everyone has
100%.
found that guild that kind of jumps out of them. I mean, I used to. I'm literally one of the people who used to just stand outside of guilds for the majority, because I didn't really feel comfortable in many guilds, really, or they weren't for me, you know. and it's always good to give that opportunity to players, but it's obviously good that that player should acknowledge that it isn't their guild, and they're kind of intruding upon their roleplay if they're demanding these big things off of them.
Just quickly, someone in the chat asked what guilds we're part of, and me and Fuse are part of Myrmidon, and I've forgotten what screen name Dak is going under on Twitch.
Bromhead, I'm GM of the Westfall Rangers.
Yeah.
Well, just to tell you a bit about the guilds quickly, rather than names of Myrmidon is like a privateer Calderai / Worgen guild, basically. So we're just out on the
a really
boat.
good way of putting it, yeah.
I'll allow Brom to say his quickly.
Human Special Forces Reconnaissance Unit.
Oh, nice and succinct. Well done, guys. We managed to not talk about our guilds for half an hour.
I mean, I don't think I can add anything else on the subject of guild coalitions and alliances apart from the tips we've given and the pros and
Well, you
cons, really.
I mean,
What have we
we
missed
haven't
out?
talked about bad stuff to them. Well, a
Have
bit,
we?
I suppose.
I mean, have you got anything else to add on that subject?
I would say there was one I was in once that went terribly and lasted about like 2 weeks. And it was a military one. It's because the military guild I was in at the time, this must have been 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. There's the 7th cohort, I believe that's what it was called.
Was that the coalition or the guild?
That was the guild.
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah. And then we basically the guild decided to sort of lose a lot of members, and I think the guild leader panicked a bit. I was like, oh well, I'm just going to give up, and the decision was made to form a coalition with the Stormwind Infantry. Because they were, obviously at the time they were seen as one of the best role-playing guilds on the server in terms of military point of view. I think they're still sort of held in that kind of esteem, and for good reason. They're great, but at the time it was we decided to do a coalition with them, see where things went, and within like 2 weeks it just gone terrible because we did a sort of full-on merge as opposed to your traditional coalition where it's still 2 separate guilds. They have their own officer structure. It was a full-on merge where the cohort went into Stormwind Infantry, and our officers were sort of sprinkled within their officers and left it at that. But within a week and a half, 2 weeks, pretty much everyone from the 7th cohort left, and the guild was disbanded. So sometimes it can just flat out kill guilds if you're not
Merges
careful.
are a fucking nightmare. I've honestly never seen a merge work.
Yeah.
I
don't
mean,
think I've seen
props
that
to
as well.
whoever has made it work, but
Yeah,
That
if you
is-
have, by all means, get in touch.
that is definitely a
Write
con
to
right
us
there.
at PO Box.
One guild can stand out or shine brighter than the other, and it can often feel like your guild is going, I mean, to put it rather harshly, to shits, really.
Yeah.
And, I mean, my advice to you is at the end of the day, you're doing it for fun, really. You don't really need to bother about being better than the other guild or having more players in them. If you and your players in your guild currently are having fun, don't let it bother you, really. The success isn't the numbers. The success is the roleplay you provide, and whether it's actually enticing, to you and your members. You're not actually trying to impress people outside the guild.
It's also like completely the opposite intention of a coalition. You make a coalition because you both sides want to support the other side, and if you're trying to directly compete with each other, it's like, I think you've missed the point.
You shouldn't be doing that in the first place, but never
Yeah.
feel intimidated, never try outdo the other guild, because at the end of the day, your guild's yours, their guild is theirs. Obviously you want to push your guild further, but when you're doing it for yourself. You want to create this roleplay, you want to get these things that get your members more active, more involved, story writing, all this stuff. But you do it for you, really.
Yeah, I think in good conditions it can help. So like with Footman now and Footman 3 years ago when Burke made the first Royal Battalion, and we had Stormwind Royal Navy and Barratide Naval Brigade, and there was a couple of others that jumped in and then disappeared quite quickly. But it was good kind of competition. It was a case of, we're not trying to undermine the other guilds, but we're going to be the best. Let's be on our best possible performance, so that A, we look good to the rest of them, but B, because, you know, if you do it, then the other side does it, and the quality of roleplay, if you're doing it right, can just skyrocket, because both guilds are trying to, in a good way, outdo each other. It's like, we need to be more immersive, we need to be more detail oriented, we need to be more active online, and it's like, you just get this environment where just because you've got different guild tags, both sides are like, no, we have to outdo them, we've got to be the better guild.
As long as
And it
a
can
healthy
be
bit of
good.
competition, yeah.
It can be good. It's the same sort of. I mean, some guilds do that internally. I know footmen do it. When they train guys, they split them into different sections or platoons. I'm not sure what they call them anymore, but basically they split their recruits into two groups and make them compete. It's like, be the better group, and that works in a coalition as well, as long as it's done in a way where, by being better, you're improving your side, not undermining the other side.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing to it. They should. Wow, it's always. I guess we always come back to on this podcast, like, be a nice person, be positive to other people, be willing to share role playing experiences, and generally be accepting of people. It always comes back to that, but I think it's because that's the best way to have enjoyable role play, really. Cause
That's pretty much why I have the positivity as one of my groups.
yeah,
You
I
promote-
know it's true.
Promote positivity, really. I mean, you're stressing yourself out when you're involving yourself in these, I don't know, EP fights, as Bromhead said earlier, like, where you're trying to outdo people and you're trying to get people to back you up against these dramatized situations. That's all time that can be used to actually have self-enjoyment rather than pulling your hair out, really.
Yeah.
At the end of the day as well, like, I don't give a shit how big or successful anyone's guild is. This applies to coalitions, but it also just applies to general GM-ship and guilds. You cannot have a guild that monopolizes any one thing on the server. The reason being, there's too many fucking people there.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be the only guild that does, I don't know, Footman RP, or the only merchant guild, or the only criminal guild, or the only whatever. You can't say to anybody else, no, you can't do a guild like that because we do that, join us instead. It's like, well, it doesn't work like that. And I always say my mantra is roleplay is about cooperation. The whole idea that Argent Dawn or Warcraft or whatever is populated by hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of sentient beings, and you're playing a very small piece of it. If your piece is the only fucking piece, you're not role-playing anything, you're just 6 dickheads walking around in armor with NPCs. It's like, the whole aspect of communicating with other guilds and interacting with them is what makes roleplay special.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Definitely.
write a fucking book.
And that definitely applies to coalitions as well. The whole
Yeah,
aspect
it
of
does,
it
yeah.
is to have a sense of community, not a sense of, I mean,
Entitlement.
yeah, dictatorship even. I mean, you can't dictate what other people are doing, and it would be pretty boring if you did, because you didn't have all this variety of roleplay to interact with, would you?
No. Very well put.
I think that's it on the topic, though, unless, again, yeah, either one of you have anything else to add on that topic. I'm taking the silence.
Yeah, take my silence, take it all, I don't want it anymore.
Okay, taking the silence as a no then, or did Brom have a little idea there?
I don't know if we possibly covered it or not, but it's like cooperation regarding coalitions and stuff is one of the reasons why I always feel that initiatives to lead the server, I'll say, never work. So when people are doing like councils of nobles or horde high command or whatever, and their entire premise is to enforce their decisions, even if those decisions are made by council, not one person.
Well, it's the old server law argument, really, isn't
These
it?
are the laws of the city. Like,
Oh,
says fucking who? The whole
Sorry, I really
reason
didn't
it
mean to
doesn't
interrupt
work.
you there. I think my mic's having some trouble.
No, you sound fine.
No, as in it was cutting out. I'm really sorry to interrupt you, Brom. I didn't mean to do that at all. I thought you had finished.
No, I think I died, actually.
Oh, I see.
I have no idea how much I actually said.
We got most of that. I got a lot of it.
yeah. basically they don't work because it's not about cooperation. It's about dominance, and we control this. You listen to us, and it's like, well, that isn't roleplay. The whole point is to cooperate. If you're trying to dominate, then you're not
You're
in
not
the right
role-playing,
mindset.
really.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just ruining other people's fun.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Alright then. I mean, this topic in itself was a pretty short one. There's only really so much you can say about guild coalitions and alliances. We technically try to keep these streams within an hour or shorter, so it won't always be an hour long, or it won't always like over the top or whatever really. There are minor changes coming. The potential of a co-host, being one of them being Ernya. I don't know if Fearland still wants to take up on that. I think there was one other person as well, which I will probably bring in next week, because Onya's on holiday as it is.
I'm fun. Fuck you guys.
Ernya did have a good idea to bring in to make the stream more interactive. I'll let Ernya talk about it because that was more his idea rather than mine.
Cool. The basic idea I had is that every week we're streaming, or every stream we're on, it'd be nice to have some sort of mini challenge just that we do while we're talking, so it gives it a bit more, stream a bit more direction, or and a bit more sort of, because it's nice for us to talk, but it's also nice for us to try and do something while we're doing it. So the idea of a mini challenge is really stupid and simple. It might be something like, a few ideas we had is like find a specific item, or make a really nice transmog for a certain theme, or just make a new character and see who can get to the highest level first, who can catch the most fish. There's like hundreds we can think of just off the top of our heads. But also, you know, I'm sure Fuse isn't opposed to taking suggestions for mini challenges. If you guys have any cool ideas or anything like that, I can see someone say, "Build a house of cards, please." I would be so on for that one if Fuse streamed it. Live stream, face reveal, card stacking.
Sure,
Yeah.
one day.
100 subs.
Yeah, I mean we're already, well yeah, 100 subs and I'll do it.
Yeah, let's go, guys.
Yeah,
That's the basic premise of the idea.
So technically, I mean, when we say transmog competition, by the way, it's not like pop on your yak and put it together. I'd probably say you have to go to the dungeons and raid individually and actually get the item and put it onto, you know, just to add time to it, because you know it is a talk. We don't want to spend just
We
like
can
5 minutes, you know,
Yeah.
disguising ourselves. It'd be simple transmogs. I don't know, like transmog
A
yourself
bandit.
into a postmaster or a bandit or.
Yeah.
A,
There's like theoretically infinite amount of stuffs we can do with it.
Yeah.
Just mini challenges, you know.
Aside from that, which that will basically be a thing, so Ernya, good idea.
Thanks, Dad.
You
Oh,
He's
that's
my dad, for those of you who didn't know.
you're older than me.
Nah, I shifted through the nth dimension to re-emerge as your own son.
No, it's getting weird. It's
Yeah.
getting weird.
Aside from that, again, as you've noticed, I've renamed it AD Talks rather than Fuse Talks, which means I have to probably go back to my other YouTube videos and change it around, you know,
Yeah, get to work.
purely because it is an Argent Dawn related talk show, not a Fuse Talks related talk show, although I am doing a lot of talking right now. That's it for now. I mean, unless any ideas and stuff pop up, I'll provide further updates. I'll provide an update on who the co-host will be. I'd say by the end of next month, maybe, or sooner. Who knows? I do like Ernya. I hope you guys like Ernya as well. I don't know what Bromhead
guys.
thinks of Ernya. Bromhead had a lot of opinionated things before the stream to say about Ernya.
His punctuality is crap. But
No, okay, so here's the thing. When they ask you to be on a stream and they say the stream's at 7 and you show up 7 minutes before 7, to me that means you're early. You know? Is it just me? Come on, give me some
we
backup
told
here.
you we have to do production checks and stuff.
Yeah,
there
rehearsals,
was no
everything.
production check. There was
We
no
would have
rehearsal.
known there was a microphone issue ages ago if you'd have turned up on time.
I doubt that entirely. It sounds
No,
like
that
you
was-
want to turn us up.
No, that was a me problem. For some reason, my settings on my stream reset itself.
Ooh.
No, I think Ernya's a good
Thank
candidate for
you.
co-host.
People People are backing me up in the chat. Someone said that's early. That counts.
One person.
I think that person may know me. Oh no, that one does.
I think that's it. I hopefully this co-hosting person can help me be more organised as well with it. Provide more in-depth topics as well. I mean, you people can always join the Discord and provide topics you'd like to see in future to be spoken about. You can provide questions for us to answer, whatever really. We'll just bring it all onto the stream. As usual, follow me on YouTube, on here. Support
Twitter.
me in whichever way you can, because that always helps me know that you enjoy this and want me to continue doing this for your viewing pleasure, whatever.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Like, share,
Follow
and
me
subscribe.
on Grinder. Yeah.
Thank you
Oh
again. Thank you
Bye,
again
guys.
for being here, Bromhead, and thank you, Ernya, for stepping in, really.
Thanks. It's always fun to be here. It's like the community's great. You guys in the chat, I love you.
Alright. See you
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you for having me along again.